Today I'm taking a look at you guys' most controversial music takes. Let's get started. Many songs are only popular or not popular because of the artist who made them and has nothing to do with the actual quality of song. I will have to agree with this one. I would say that songs that make an artist big, like their first big song, needs to have a certain X factor to it. Not necessarily high quality, but something that makes them stand out. For example, I really hate Dance Monkey with a passion, but it's one of those songs that definitely stood out and became a big deal because of the song. On the other side of things, there's definitely a bunch of artists who are releasing songs that become big that would not have become big without them. For example, I don't really think that Positions by Ariana Grande is the best song in the world. It's a hit, but it is a hit because it's Ariana Grande. Of course, quality of song is subjective, and I don't think that the quality necessarily is the main reason why something gets big most of the time. Another example I have to say is BTS's Dynamite. It's always scary to say anything negative about anything regarding BTS, but I think a lot of their other songs have more of an X factor to them. But Dynamite is just such a run-of-the-mill pop song that if anyone else released it, it would have been like, but because it's BTS, it becomes massive. I think Autotune shouldn't be used at all. Defending its use to make small adjustments isn't justified because most ordinary people can't hear the subtle differences. So what's the point? And if it's super Autotune, then it's just cheating / lowering the standards of current singers. Interesting take. I think a pretty common comparison to Autotune is Photoshop. Do you think that Photoshop should not be used to make a picture of someone prettier? Because that's the same argument. You're making this piece of art. In my opinion, most art is not supposed to just show off the quality of the singer or the quality of a person's skin or whatever, or how big their eyes are. Maybe, I don't know. It depends what it comes down to, but if you're just making a piece of art and you want to get there as quickly as possible, want to make the best quality art, you could be angry that you don't have the right genetics to get that perfectly porcelain skin. I think once the line is crossed, there's no going back. I think, yes, if we got to choose between Autotune not existing and Autotune existing, there might be a point to saying Autotune shouldn't exist, but it exists now, and me personally, I'm really happy that more people can make music that I can enjoy, because I am a stickler, as you may know, for pitch singing. It bothers me a lot, and personally, I'm not offended that someone uses Autotune on a record. If they can make amazing art that I like, then that's awesome. It just comes down to, do you care about the music, or do you care about everything being exactly as it was when someone recorded? Because there's a lot more things you have to outlaw if you're gonna be outlawing Autotune. Maybe you want to be like, ooh, I don't want any echo on the singing as well. No reverb. Maybe you don't want any compression either then. So compression is basically that when you sing loud, it takes it down to normal level. So for example, I can sing, we are gonna. So the go there is a lot louder than the other parts of my singing. It would be really awful to listen to that type of singing without compression. So there's all these things that basically make us cyborgs. If you say ordinary people can't hear the subtle differences, then I would say that maybe they can't point it out specifically, but it's more of a subconscious thing. Ooh, this vocal is so nice. When it comes to Autotune, at the end of the day, mainstream art, or art that people enjoy, or art that many people are supposed to enjoy, really comes down to what people like and dislike. And I think it's been proven by now that people love Autotune on vocals. Even amazing singers have Autotune on, because it makes things that are already amazing just a little bit better. And me personally, I can't find it in myself to be upset that someone who hasn't practiced singing as much as me can make a song that sounds good. That's great. Please, everyone, just make great music, make great art, use whatever tools you want to. Why not? By the way, guys, welcome back to another daily video. My name's Joel from Roomy Official, and I have a celebrity guest with me here in the studio. Check it out. It's The Rock. Rap actually isn't good and just makes ears bleed. I'm gonna have to disagree with this one. There's a lot of great rap, and people who say this type of thing usually haven't given it a proper chance.
I have the musical case against rap, and then I will get to the cultural case against rap.
I gotta be honest, even as a young musician, I kind of felt this way about a lot of pop music. Like, oh, pop music isn't bad. It's just whatever. Easy to write, and everything's bad about it. And then I got into it, and I studied it, and I started really appreciating pop music and the minimalism of it. All these things that are really difficult about pop music. I would say if you care about lyrics, it's way more interesting to look at rap than to look at pop music. There is pop music with good lyrics, but just the speed and flow of rapping can deliver so much more when it comes to lyrics than singing. All music genres are equally good. Classical is no better or worse than pop or country. There's good and bad songs in all genres, but the genres themselves aren't bad or good by default. I would have to kind of agree. It's true that music is subjective. At the same time, I would argue that the genres where more people are working really, really hard to make the best best possible music does get better. So while the building blocks of a genre aren't necessarily worse, if you have a lot of people trying to make something as good as possible, the overall standard will definitely increase. For example, there's a lot of companies right now trying to do the best possible smartphone, right? And smartphones therefore are amazing and really cheap and really cool. That's also, of course, subjective, but smartphones are amazing. And now to represent something that not as many people are working on, we got the quirky egg minder smart egg holder. So you put this in your fridge and it keeps track of if you're running out of eggs, which, you know, sounds like a good idea. Kinda. And then you look at the reviews. It's all terrible. For a lot of people, it can't connect to the Wi-Fi through the fridge. It takes up a lot of space, so people who would be able to have more eggs before they bought the device now can only have 14 eggs.
It's such a weird item.
If more people would have worked on the smart egg tray, maybe we would have had great egg trays by now. Sorry, I did go off on a tangent, but to go back to music, this is the same way with music. There's weird music genres that just not a lot of people are working on, and the people who are working on it maybe aren't working hard enough, like with a quirky egg minder. It doesn't mean that pop music automatically is a lot better because more people are working on it, but it's more likely for a genre to reach its potential if a lot of people are trying to make the best possible thing and inspiring each other. I may go out on a limb here and even say that I think pop music is evolving faster than classical music. And because a lot more young people want to write pop music, that young creative energy will definitely go into pop music more than classical. Meaning that maybe you could argue that pop music is better than classical music to some degree. Or at least it's getting better faster. There's been a lot of years for classical music to get really good, so it may still be ahead. I don't even know. Anyway, that's my take on it. A lot of underground bands are better than mainstream bands. I like that it's called bands here. Like, oh, we're cutting out all of the solo artists and it's only bands. I would probably have to agree. I think that a lot of underground bands who are not trying to break through or achieve commercial success will be able to experiment with more interesting ideas. And especially when it comes to mainstream bands, a lot of them are just, I would say, pretty bad. I don't know why it keeps happening, but I'm not a huge fan of stuff like Imagine Dragons or Nickelback, whatever. I'm trying to think of bands. They're not terrible. They're pretty okay. Then you have bands that get a lot less recognition. Like, for example, one of my favorite bands who are still a pop band, but they're called Mariana's Trench. Amazing music, never really blew up to a massive extent, even though the singer wrote Call Me Maybe for Carly Rae Jepsen. If you want to check it out, listen to Ever After by Mariana's Trench. It's a little bit of a modern take on the Queen song, specifically Bohemian Rhapsody. Kind of that got a lot of parts type of thing. I think the singer's amazing. Let's move on. By the way, guys, we got merch. We got this merch. We got that merch. We got that merch. Check it out. Link in the description to Crowdmade. It's very, very good quality. Adele's voice is not good and actually makes me cringe. I'm probably the 1% that thinks this. I'm gonna have to disagree with a caveat that I do think that is definitely overvalued. I think there's a lot of things that go into why Adele is so popular, and there's a lot of very talented singers out there. To say that her voice and her songwriting is so much better than everyone else that a lot of people seem to be arguing online, I just think that's preposterous. I just think that's crazy. For example, have a listen to Leon's single Liar. Amazing, amazing track. I think there's a lot of people who specifically have better lyric writing going on than Adele and comparable voices. I do think she's super talented and amazing. I wouldn't say she has a bad voice, but I think she's definitely overvalued in a lot of aspects. It's not hypocritical to listen and enjoy music created by an artist who you personally might not like as a person. Interesting take. I would say maybe I'm very conflicted about this as well. There's a couple artists that I don't want to name that I still kind of listen to because there's nothing like it. There's nothing quite as good as what they do. There's similar things going on in the comedy sphere. I don't really want to name anyone, but one of my favorite comedians of all time ended up having done some icky stuff, and it's just, I kind of want to go back and watch it because it was one of my biggest inspirations before I heard about it. Should I not be able to keep being inspired by that I already invested so much time in, and that is some of the best entertainment in the world? At the same time, of course, you can argue that you're giving money to that artist, right? It's very, very difficult. I would say if you haven't listened to an artist and you know that they're a bad person, just kind of stay away. Try not to listen to it. Just don't even give it the chance to seduce your ears, you know? Ariana Grande is boring. I would have to say maybe. It's really up to you. I could see how her brand of pop can get a little bit boring for a lot of people. I'm personally a fan myself. It's some of the slickest, most well-produced music you can find. So you can definitely say that that is treading the line towards boring. Singers should not rely their whole success on a character/persona they create, aka Melanie Martinez, 2000s Lady Gaga, etc. It gets boring over the time and it feels like you're listening to the same songs over and over again. I would have to maybe agree it depends so much on the character. If the character is very like flat or one-dimensional, sure, they shouldn't just be doing that thing. But there's people who also have many different personas that they choose from that can get more interesting. And if you have a persona that's not exactly you, but that still has a broad range of emotion, why not? I really like how many people are role-playing in their music recently. People like Billie Eilish and a bunch of different other people are writing music out of a perspective that is not necessarily their own. I mean, it's something that has been done for a really long time, but it's way more in focus nowadays. And I think it's interesting. Nothing wrong with it. So it's like, depends how boring your persona is. Next. Who gives a frick about 100 gex? Let's see how many people do that. 100 gex. Looks like about 1.8 million people this month gave a frick about 100 gex. I think it's a pretty cool genre. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea necessarily, but you know, it's pretty crazy music. Definitely more fun than a run-of-the-mill pop song, I would say. There are no good female rappers. I talk about this all the time. I would have to disagree. I'm not a rap expert by any means, but seeing people like Megan Thee Stallion go nuts is just incredible. I don't know if I showed this before. This is such a funny clip because there's a bunch of guys in this cypher that are just not doing that hot, and then she just comes in and destroys it.
Buzz down our regular face. What? Hey, chasing blues like the baby. What? Hey, swerving raw with cake. What? Jogged out, no I didn't graduate.
And then she comes in now.
I want your man trying to see what it hit for. Post a new pic for I'm a shit on big bag talk, make that little money get gone. I love cash, I be in the bank trying to get it on. I'm getting money, I ain't even mad at you. Rich bitch shit, I might throw a bag at you. Speaking on my name, only make it sound better. You in my DM and you write love letter.
It's just she obliterates everyone in this, and honestly, that flow and that, for lack of a better word, I'm an old man, okay, swagger. I think it's awesome. There's a lot of really good female rappers. That's just one example. I'm a fan of like Nicki Minaj as well. I think she's done some epic verses. There's a lot of good female rappers. I don't know where you got that from. That's what I think anyway. Anyone could sing if they had practice. I believe that. However, you need more practice if you're garbage. You may not be able to hit a high level of proficiency at it, but it's just like any other skill. If you got vocal cords, you can definitely get better at singing. Just like if you got legs, you can get better at running as long as you can use them, you know, in a wheelchair or something, which, you know, my condolences. Next. Freddie Mercury was a horrible singer. It's not hard to sing like him. You're just a bad singer. I'm gonna have to disagree.
That is hilarious.
What a take. Freddie Mercury had a great voice. His range is crazy. His dynamics were crazy. I would need arguments from you for why you think this. It's definitely hard to sing like him. You need to be able to go between your registers really easily. You need amazing energy. I don't... Bad take. Next. 80s music was the best era for music. I'm gonna have to disagree. I do love 80s music, but what we listen to nowadays when it comes to 80s music are just the very best songs from the 80s. There's this weird survivor bias when it comes to old music, like, oh, music was great in the 60s because of whatever, you know, huge legendary artists that we think about. There are legendary artists living right now, most likely, but we don't know who they will be or what songs will be remembered. So looking back at the best music from 10 years is pretty crazy. That's like looking for the best songs between 2010 and 2020. There's so much amazing stuff. So subjectively, of course, yeah, sure, you can think that the 80s sound is interesting if you want, like, ooh, big reverb or whatever. But generally, there is 80s music now as well that sounds, to me at least, better. Like, it's better recorded, it's cleaner. One pet peeve I have with a lot of 80s music is that there was a lot of S's that kind of like went into the reverb. For example, in Wake Me Up Before You Go, I think whenever he sings an S, there's just this reverb tail like that just fizzes over everything. No bueno. Okay guys, click here for more music commentary videos, click here for music VS videos, and I will see you tomorrow in another daily video. Some good takes in this one, some bad takes in this one, but I do think we can all agree that Lil Pitchy is the worst artist of all time. Spitting facts.